Hi, I'm Tony from Slowpoke's Adventures with my best friend Lucy here at Hidden Pond Place. Today we're going to talk about using corrugated metal inside your home to give it a country look. In this video I've used bookmarks to section off some of the sections that you might want to refer back to help you with your own do-it-yourself project. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed the video, please share and subscribe. Good pair of gloves when you're working with corrugated metal, and the most important thing is to wear the gloves. You're going to be using tin snips. It's always a good idea to sharpen them before each use. It can save you a lot of time and frustration, I believe. I just put them in a vise and just run a file over both sides of the tin snips. It's good to have a nice, large, flat area when you're cutting your corrugated material. It is really difficult to do if you're just using the ground. So I have a large flatbed truck, which makes this really convenient. My truck really doubles as a large workbench. Another lesson I learned when working with this corrugated metal as an interior product is that the width of it is not really designed for interior use. And with that I mean, normally your studs inside your building structure are going to be 2 foot apart. This particular corrugated metal that I'm using happens to be 26 inches in width. So what that means is your overlap and where your corrugated metal will meet may not necessarily be on one of your studs, causing you some degree of grief and a loose edge. So that needs to be compensated for. The best way I have found, and this is through trial and error, for compensating for the difference in width going to the various studs is by simply building my shiplap wall from the ceiling down past a little more than the halfway point. So if you have an 8-foot wall, I built the shiplap wall down a couple inches. You can even do it 6 inches if you want, past the 4-foot mark from the ceiling. Now that gives you a little overhang to use for your corrugated metal. Now that can cause you, and it is here, but it's just to me non-noticeable, a slight overhang. So you're going to be overhanging just slightly here, and it comes down. It's not going to be exactly straight, but in 4-foot distance you've got about a 1/2 inch of thickness there that's being compensated for. So it's just not going to be noticeable, in my opinion, for that type of distance. If you really wanted to, and you wanted to make sure it was exactly perfectly straight, you could put a small 1/2 inch strip of wood at the bottom along your stud as well. I did not do that here. Now on this wall that I've got done here, I'm going to put a piece of trim across the top. Making the cuts for the electrical outlets can be quite challenging. It's one of those things that you need to make sure you measure twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, and cut once. It seems very, very simple on the surface, but I have extreme difficulty sometimes with this because you have to sometimes think backwards when you're doing this. And I suppose everybody has their own method to do this. But what I do is I first kind of lay the corrugated metal there, kind of look at it a little bit, and then I think, okay, how far back, and I measure how far back is it on the width from the end, and then how far up is it from the bottom, and then I go ahead and I add my distances for the box, adding about a ½ inch both on the width and on the length. The other thing is that I found out through experience, and I didn't do this at first, and I had just metal flapping around in there and I didn't have no way to secure it, was it's important to have something to secure your corrugated metal to once you do get it installed, and something to be able to screw into. So what I did is I built boxes around the electrical outlet in order to be able to do that. I wish I would have done that first before I actually started into the corrugated metal portion of the project. So you do need to get your cuts done at least precise enough so that when you put your outlet cover on your outlet, it's going to cover all of the metal, and that if somebody was to accidentally kick it or something like that, it's not going to just bend in, because there's actually going to be a structure there protecting the metal around it, and that is why we put the boxes on each electrical outlet. So we're going to measure for that and then install the last piece of corrugated metal here. You have to mark where you're going to cut, where I'm going to cut this piece for the dryer vent, and the best way to mark these is probably a Sharpie or something like that, because a pen or a pencil is not going to work to mark on this corrugated metal, that I found out anyway. But then you're left sometimes with remnants of a Sharpie mark on your cuts. So one little trick that I played around with and I think works okay is actually just using some Scotch tape or just some clear tape to do this. And so I'm going to mark and just get an approximate location of where my cut's going to be, and just throw a piece of tape down in that area. Okay, once we got our cut measured out and lined up and everything and marked, it's time to put those gloves on. And the other thing I failed to mention was it's also good practice to wear a pair of safety glasses when you're doing anything like this. Y'all trust me as I put them on. You won't be able to see my face while I'm doing this, however. I'm trying to focus on the product here. And then the cut ready to go. So for whatever reason, they're easier to cut horizontally than vertically. I make my first 2 cuts. Times I'll use both hands. If you need to, like so. So we got our first 2 cuts done. And then the way we can do this, it should be a little easier. Cut right down the middle. Right to your line. At that point you can decide, well, can I go ahead and bend those off? I'm going to go ahead and make a couple more, just because I like the last part to be the easiest part. Okay, so you got get your metal in place and make sure you got a good fit, which we got a pretty good fit. So if not, you know, sometimes you got to go back to the workshop and adjust it. You know, so this fitting over my dryer vent okay, and make sure again you got your gloves on at least to the point where you kind of got it fitted around here. And I'm also fortunate enough that I've got my stud right behind it, right where it ends too. So a lot of times, like I was mentioning earlier, that can be a big problem. Okay, made some small little pieces of trim for down there at the dryer vent, and you can use whatever little scraps you might have laying around for this type of thing. And then I made a big piece of trim that's going to lay across this piece here, and we'll mount that up top on this portion. So there you have the finished product of this wall. You've got the corrugated metal down here, 4 foot up, the trim, and then the shiplap the rest of the way up. I hope that this helped explain a few of the things about working with corrugated steel with a shiplap wall. And perhaps this will help you in a project that you're doing for your own homestead. Thanks, everyone.